Hello, you dogs. I'm back, and as you might have noticed, I have about a fucking 5-week gap between my last two uploads. And you're probably gonna say, Leo, you preach all about consistency, but you're not consistent at all. And that's probably a fair call. Doesn't mean I'm wrong about consistency. But I'll bet around $2 that you aren't consistent all the time either. So, I'm gonna show you what I do when I haven't been consistent. Don't get me wrong, consistency still number one thing, just stay consistent. And if you're not consistent, you're a low-grade human. But if you are a low-grade human for once, which look, it's gonna happen every now and then you have priorities. And the priority is getting back on track. In other words, how do we navigate setbacks and recover from them as quickly as possible? Let's have a look. Alrighty, let's first identify the damages. For me, that was around 5 weeks of Japanese study, which amounts to roughly 150 kanji, 147 to be exact, and around 1.5 grammar lessons. So now knowing what we've missed, let's have a look at how we can get back on track. And there's a few ways. Either you can delay your finish line, which for me was that 41-week study plan, and just say, look, I can't kind of catch up those 150 kanji. It's just not possible. So I have to move the end line from week 41 to week 46. Or you can increase your volume per week. And that obviously now depends on how quickly I want to get those 150 kanji done to get back on track. So I could either just fucking push all the 150 kanji out in the next week and I'd be caught up with my study plan next week and that would be it. But I don't think that's smart because I think I would struggle fitting that into my schedule. And even if I could somehow fit it in, I don't think it's sustainable because the Anki due cards in the following days or weeks are just going to be off the charts, and I don't think that's a good idea. Now, I've thought about a few things. I thought about dividing those 150 kanji evenly throughout the rest of the weeks until week 41, which would be 17 weeks. But I decided to not do that and spread out the kanji through 7 weeks. So in the next 7 weeks, I will, instead of doing around 25 to 35 kanji per week, I will be hovering around that 35 to 60 kanji per week range. And I think that's very sustainable and doable for the times where something might come up and I can't achieve that kind of newer, higher workload per week. I would just kind of revert back to the original workload, which was around 20 to 35 kanji per week. And for me, considering my schedule and my next coming months, I think that's very realistic and a good plan to follow. One important point I really wanted to highlight is the kind of notion of at least staying consistent with retaining your knowledge, even if you're in a period where you don't make any new progress at all. Meaning, if you're in a setback, try your best to retain the knowledge you have, even if you are kind of too burnt out or not motivated enough to go forward with your original plan. And that's really important. And that might sound difficult, but what really comes into play here are habits. And having the habit of just going into Anki every morning or before bed or whenever, does not matter. Having that habit of doing your Anki cards every day will have you retain the knowledge you've already learned. But if you can retain old knowledge during a setback or kind of a rut, then you're fucking sweet. You really are. Because the most problematic thing about not being consistent is not actually that you don't make progress all the time, but that you continuously lose progress and have to relearn old stuff again and again. And that's what you shouldn't do. So stay consistent with retaining your knowledge. Use something like Anki or whatever works best for you, really. For me, it's Anki. And don't lose progress. And another really, really kind of fundamental, super important thing is to not get demotivated by a rut or by a setback. If you've had a setback and you feel shit about it, good, you should, but you shouldn't stop because of that. Don't get into this fucking pussy all or nothing mindset where you've failed for the last month and then just think,
oh, I'm a failure, I don't want to do this anymore, this isn't for me.
And fucking act like a loser. Don't do that. There's a Japanese quote, it says, fall 7 times, stand up 8. And that's really important. Setbacks are shit and you should stay consistent, and if you're continuously inconsistent, then figure out why that's happening, because it shouldn't. But if it does happen, fall down and stand back up.